You jibber jab, bamboozle, nuka noozle, bippity bop, she called. You jibber jab, bamboozle, nuka noozle, bippity bop, she called. I mean, you keep on talking, but you don't know where to turn.
Welcome to the weekend. I'm Jon Caldara, president of the Independence Institute. You're watching Independent Thinking. I've been waiting for this show for a long time. I'm a big fan, although we just met recently. Daniel Hannan from the European Parliament. I want to get this right because I always get so confused because you have the European Parliament, then you've got the UK Parliament. You represent a large part of London, actually of England, for the European Union.
For the European Parliament, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And your district in the UK is?
Is the southeast of England, which is a strong Conservative area.
And so you're here in Colorado to try to drum up some votes from the English who might be voting by proxy.
The enormous English community of Denver. No, I'm here because I've never been here, and it's wonderful to be here.
We at the Independence Institute have been eager to get you out, and in odd ways. You never know how communication changes now. You are now. You're a YouTube hit. You're a viral hit. Now, you've also been a commentator on Fox News, which people have gotten to you, but it's really because you've had over 2.5 million people watch this little video. I mean, you're more popular than the Obama girl, and if you don't know that, you're better off. When you're there in the European Parliament, and you took, let's take it out what it is, a 5-minute screed against your English Prime Minister, Gordon Brown, which was done in, pardon me for saying this flawless, wonderful English gentlemanly way, but you slapped this guy around. What led up to this?
I love this line of questioning. Yeah. It really makes me on my toes when the questions are this tough. I mean, it's interesting. I had an opportunity because he was there, and under the conventions of the European Parliament, the visitor has to sit and listen. So I thought, for once, this man is going to sit there and hear what people are saying in my constituency, about how he's spraying our money away, about how he's emptying the Treasury and exhausting our credit and burdening our children with debt. But the weird thing is,
he had to sit there and take it.
He had to sit there.
Here in the United States, there's no other way. We free market conservatives have this dream, a pipe dream of tying Obama up and yelling at him. What are you doing? You're putting our kids into debt. You're spending us. You're bringing us towards the brink of socialism. But we don't have that opportunity. There is quite honestly a glass wall.
You say that, but I mean, the amazing thing is, you touched on the YouTube, the way in which something can go viral now. I mean, that couldn't have happened 2 years ago. Certainly couldn't have happened 5 years ago. And I think this is very good news for conservatives generally, because the left has always relied on control of information as much as everything else. And they did very well when they got to mediate the news, right? So there'd be a story, and then there would be somebody with a microphone standing in front of the screen, précising it, interpreting it, telling you what you ought to think about it. And the internet has just broken that down completely. It's disintermediated the message. And so it means people can now hear at first hand from the direct source what's gone on, and they can make their own mind up. Now, I think that's got to be good news for truth, but it's also particularly good news for freedom and for free market conservatives.
I couldn't agree more. The technology right now favors us. And
fantastic.
That, used to be, I'm always amazed that the Soviet Union, for instance, had a world-class broadcast system. Their radio and television systems were first world. Their telephone system was third world. They didn't want people talking amongst themselves. They wanted to be spoken. They want to talk at these folks. And we have the same thing with the media here, and we found ways to get around. But you had the delicious opportunity to have your Prime Minister sit and listen to what you had to say. And for those who hadn't heard it, what was the message you wanted to give them?
Well, we are a few years further down the road than you are, in the sense that you've just embarked on this process of borrowing and spending. We are, unfortunately, 10 years further down that line, and we have therefore reached the moment where the money has run out completely. And therefore people have swung against it very strongly. The most recent elections we had in the UK was the European election, where I was re-elected 3 weeks ago. The Labour Party, the governing party, got 15% in that election, which is just, I mean, you have to go back to before the universal franchise to find Labour doing that badly. It's unprecedented. There's almost no vocabulary to describe. 15% of the popular vote, right?
And now, also, we should know that when you use those percentages, it's not just a two-party system out there. You might have several parties.
It's a sort of 2.5-party system. But I mean, 15% for the governing party is just
unheard of,
without any precedent. And the reason for that is people can see that the money has run out. You know, that for 10 years we paid increased tax and we got into debt. And for what? You know, where are the better hospitals? Where are the better schools? Where's the better transport system? It's all gone into the salaries of state bureaucrats. And in some cases, it's done no good at all. In some cases, it's actually made things worse.
How has it made things worse?
Well, here's a classic example. We have a socialist healthcare system. We have what's called the National Health Service, which is run basically on socialist principles. So it's funded out of general taxation, but is free at the point of use. And it, for that reason, doesn't work very well, in the same way that if we had a national food service and everyone had to, you know, eat at a government-allocated restaurant and buy it from a government-mandated supermarket, that would be pretty bad as well, and it would lead to fraud and racketeering.
And rationing.
And rationing, and in the end, starvation. So a similar thing has happened in healthcare. But of course, rather than admit that, the socialist government said, oh, the problem with it is that it needs more money.
We hear this in our socialized education system all the time.
And one of the things they did is they massively increased the salaries of the doctors who were contracted to work for the National Health Service. And of course, doctors are rational human beings. They realized that if they could get more money for working shorter hours, they could work shorter hours, and they did. So that was a classic example of where the additional money, or the additional investment, as they always call it, this is a classic socialist trick, you call it investment as though you're getting some kind of return on it. The additional money wasn't just useless, it was actively harmful. And it's
because you paid doctors more, they didn't have to work as often, so now there are fewer doctor hours out there for sick people to see their physician.
Exactly. So the taxpayer is worse off, and the patient is worse off. It's a bit like if you'll allow me an elaborate metaphor with this money. Instead of proper irrigation for soil, it's like a sudden flash flood where the soil wasn't ready. So the water just sluices off uselessly, and in some cases, like with these doctors, it actually washes the topsoil away and makes the soil less fertile than if you hadn't done anything at all.
Here in the United States, we've heard that this stimulus money is to be used for roads and bridges, which sounds good, and that's good infrastructure, and it should have a multiplier effect. But when you take a look at the nearly $800 billion, you find out that about 5% of it is actually going to roads and bridges. The rest is going to some type of corporate welfare or transfer payments, and those transfer payments, unlike building a bridge, once it's done, you paid for it, welfare transfer payments continue. They become an entitlement, and they go and they go. Yep. Before that, under the last president, we passed the TARP bill, which was a financial bailout bill, and now we have, in essence, socialized and nationalized many of our financial institutions. We have now a nationalized insurance company, AIG. We now have a nationalized car company, actually 2 nationalized car companies. So help us. Now that we're doing this, you say you've got a 10-year head start. What is it that we should be prepared for as we're following your road?
Well, you'll find that these programs are much more easily started than terminated. It's very easy for the state to spray around other people's money. It's much harder for them to cut down when the stimulus package has had its effect. And so what is intended to have a sort of one-off Keynesian pump priming effect then becomes part of structural spending and remains so. So it becomes, if you like, pro-cyclical spending, which is why the state then grows and grows, and long after whatever initial stimulus effect has worn off, you're still stuck with funding this bureaucracy and funding the people who work for it. Again, it's human nature. When you begin one of these programs, you have to take on a staff to run it. And the people who then work for it, being human beings, will keep on finding new ways to justify their salary. So I have yet, in 10 years in politics, I have never come across a bureaucracy that comes along and says, Minister, the reason for which we were set up is no longer pertinent and we recommend our disbandment. It doesn't happen. So you end up having to pay more and more because the bureaucracy is expanding to service the needs of the bureaucracy.
When you say there's no more money, when you say you've hit the limit, now you've spent it all, give me some detail on that. Now here, we're printing up money. We're borrowing it from other countries. Now other countries are saying, you're not a good credit risk. So we're basically monetizing this debt, which is in essence printing up dollar bills, and our kids are going to have to clean up the mess. I find this to be not just intergenerational theft, I believe it to be child abuse, that we're stealing from our kids and we're racking up their credit cards. When you say you're out of money, how is it that you're out of money?